coming up on WordBirds.
Consistency is what emblazons your brand and your reputation and your values into the customer mindset. Flashiness can do it a moment in time, possibly. But when you're a new brand or new-ish brand and you're competing against Fortune 500 companies, you need to make sure that it's solid, it's consistent, that they're not questioning, what you say from one conversation to another.
Hello and welcome to WordBirds, a birds of a feather conversation amongst people who care about words. Today on the show, we have Julie Kaplan. Julie is Senior Vice President of Marketing and Revenue Operations at CareMetx, a hub services company serving pharmaceutical, biotech, and device manufacturing customers. Today on the show, we're going to talk about how your best content should help you attract and identify your actual buyer, how your worst content campaign might just be the one you never did, and how your favorite song is the best example of brand consistency. Let's sit back and get some insight from the fly.
What could you do with a 90% reduction in content errors, a 70% increase in content quality, and a 60% reduction in content editing costs? Probably what our customers are already doing. And that's creating better content faster. Acrolinks, the amazing content company.
Hello, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am very excited to have you on the show. I think, letting people know this season, this is people that I know. It's a little different format. Julie and I are in several groups together. We talk through large, complex marketing issues. And one of the things that we're going to talk through today is content inside CareMetx, the company that Julie works at. Let's go ahead and jump into the quick fire. What's the best and most successful content campaign you've run?
Our best content campaign was based on a report. Interestingly enough, the report, the data for the report was actually done or contracted for by our owners, and it was to do some deep market research in our space. And after reading the content, there were a couple of us that looked at it and were like, we should make that into a report. And that became our first long form content piece, and happened to be pretty successful in drawing in prospects.
Fantastic. What was the worst content campaign?
The one we never did. We're still very much in a learning phase here. So anything that we do, of course, you want to go out with something smart and good, but we learn by doing. And right now, anything that we don't do is the thing that I consider the worst.
I love that. So of the two, where are you learning the most? Is it the things that you don't know, or are you learning the most from things like the report?
Well, we're learning the most from actually experimenting. So the report was an experiment, just producing the report and seeing if there would be interest. Then we used the report to experiment with what content syndication would work the best. So we learned there's a particular publication in our industry, and that brought in the most form fills, like far and away more than any of the other things we've done. So we're, and everything we do, like when we break it out and when we use it for social, we're just learning. We're learning from what we do. Some things work, some things don't. We repeat what works and we don't repeat what doesn't, or we learn from it and iterate.
Tell me a little bit about the report. What's the basis of it, and how is it resonating with your audiences?
It's called the Evolving Landscape of Hub Services. And what it tells you is what's happening in our industry. And it's a report about how buyers of our service and users of our service, those are two different audiences, view hub services and what they think is going to be important in the next 5 years. So that's why it's called the Evolving Landscape.
Were you able? So, I mean, that obviously is going to have some huge benefit to your customer base because you're going to get a better understanding of what is needed in the market and where they should be headed. How did you use that? So you did content syndication. Did you do anything else to get that word out to build that audience?
Uh, Content syndication, we have a small budget. We were very focused in what we experimented with. We used content syndication. We put up a landing page. We've sent out some emails. Um, that's and we've done some social.
And that in and of itself is really blowing that report up because it's important to people. And I think
Right.
that's the biggest piece of this is that you've created original content that helps the people you're trying to serve make better decisions.
That's right. Make better decisions about the types of services that we have to offer. And they're forward looking. So it's definitely here's what you need to know for the future. It's not a rehash of the past, but here's what you need to know for the future. And I talked about two audiences that we researched in that report. One is the buying audience, but then there's the user audience. We're invisible to the users. But those users are important to our buying audience, and their point of view about these services is really important. So it definitely has some unique information in there that might be hard to come by.
And are you, I mean, beyond what you're doing from a content campaign, are you using that in demand gen around ABM and reaching directly out to the people that were involved in the creation of that content?
We're not. We're mostly, so it's more like step two.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very long buying cycle, so 18 months. Interestingly enough, even though we're using it like in content syndication and we're driving people to forms, it's been our single best demand gen effort, even though that's not what the initial
Right.
purpose was.
I mean, I'm thinking back at the things that I've done like that in the past, and we started um, back in I want to say 2001, 2002 timeframe. We were building a solution for 529 college investment plans, and it was, I mean, this is 6 years into the internet. We were creating the first online enrollment process, and the states each have a 529 plan, right?
Yeah.
But they don't administer it. Investment management companies administer it. So the state of Maine, the next gen plan was administered by Merrill Lynch. We're selling to Merrill Lynch. That's who our prospects were. We sold to financial services companies. But we created this piece of content that rated every state plan based on the capabilities they had around online enrollment, and then pitched that to the states, the state treasurer's office. By the way, nobody calls the state treasurer's office from a B2B software company. So they took our calls. Like, did you know that your state just got rated fairly low in this survey? No, you should talk to our administrator. Oh, cool. And we did, and built a whole product line around this, selling through the state to the investment management companies through this single
Brilliant.
piece of asset. And
I love it.
that became something that we did on a regular basis with PR and outreach and media waiting for it, because we were the only voice for that particular solution in the marketplace. They wanted to know what plans were doing the best, what states were doing the most for their consumer. And I feel like that's the same place you are. You have this individual content, and you're just at the tip of the iceberg of the things that you could be doing with that as you evolve this piece, build this piece out, and keep moving with it.
Yeah, that you're right on the money. There's a lot of potential in the future for this content, this piece of content, but also content pieces like it. We've just begun our experimentation, and we have a lot to learn, and probably not dissimilar from the 529 plans and who you were selling to at the time. The space is a little bit in the early phases, not nascent, but still early enough. People don't have a playbook for how to sell or what to do or who to talk to or when, what exactly works. So, and you're in a complex buying cycle and buying to and how you sell to these companies is not like a no-brainer, and who you sell to is not a no-brainer. And we're in a similar situation. It's a complex industry. It's not like we're selling, not that I want to diminish this, but like if you were selling an accounting tool to the CFO, it's not hard to know that you need to go to the chief accountant or the CFO. Well, we don't have the equivalent of that.
Right.
They're all different titles, all different departments, all different levels. And by the way, 12 other influencers. So, we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And if you can provide value to the person that's inside the business looking for the answer, they're going to self-identify. And that's where this gets really interesting is I might not see who you are, but I'm going to provide something that is very individualized to you. You self-identify. Now we have something to talk about. And that's where this whole content marketing aspect gets really exciting, is when it really hits the mark. I mean, you could be spending time creating pieces of content on why hub services are really cool, but that's not that. Nobody's looking for that as an answer. People are trying to identify how to do their jobs better, how to serve their customers better, and you're creating that to solve very specific problems.
Right. And they're making decisions today for what happens 6 months from now.
Yep.
And 12 months from now and 18 months from now. So helping them see into the future a little bit will help them feel more confident in the decisions they make. And a lot of what we're trying to do, or at least what we've been trying to do recently in our content, is really talk about those feelings, right? Do you feel confident? What would give you more confidence? We know that a lot of hub services providers create frustration. How can we remove the frustration for you? So it's not just about what can we do for you, but how can we make you feel good about doing it for you?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I think that's, the whole approach just really targets like the idea that you don't have the biggest budget. You don't have a huge team of content creators all over the world doing this. Highly targeted, highly impactful, moves so many needles because that single piece of content becomes the source of so many derivatives. I mean, on that topic, let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about, generative AI. Are you able to take that as a source piece of content and create new content from that? Have you done any of that yet?
We are experimenting with AI, of course. We haven't run that particular experiment yet. We have a lot of low-hanging fruit still yet to do. So the advanced techniques we're not quite into yet. But yes, we're breaking it apart. We're creating blogs out of it. We're going to create social out of it. We're taking the big piece and then chunking it out into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. That's what we do. We haven't asked ChatGPT to make it better, but
it's out there. It's
on the to-do list.
it's very fascinating what you're able to do, and you can really tune a model to your own content.
What we are doing with ChatGPT related to it is we're testing headlines. And ChatGPT is giving us better headlines sometimes than what we can come up with.
Well, it's taking your own eyes out of the equation. Like in the business in which I work, we've told a story that we've designed over the course of 20 years. We told that story for about 20 years. And so everybody's really ingrained in the story that we tell, that we created. And tuning a model around all the aspects of our business, and then asking it, like, explain what we do based on all these things, because we have a core product. We've added a new feature, and it's one slide, then it was 2 slides, then it's 3 slides of telling the story. Go back and tell me on one slide what we do here. And it can look down on you from 100,000 feet in a way that is very difficult for us as people in the business to do. And will it get you 100% of the way there? No, of course not. But does it give you something more to think about? Like, oh, I never would have thought those two things go together to create. That's really interesting. That's the direction that we want to go in. And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Well, what I love about what you're doing there is AI is not going to be as committed to every word that you agonized over. So it helps you sort of cut through some of the history.
Yeah, 100%. The things that we thought were super important, it's like, yeah, that's a detail. That's over on the side. Here's your new headline, and that makes
Yeah.
a lot of difference. Let's dig into sort of the things that make your world different. I mean, you're marketing in this much more scientific environment of pharma and med devices, and specific personas that you go after. What are the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis marketing to those very specific divisions within pharma
Right.
enterprises?
Well, I think I alluded to it a little earlier already, in that there isn't a position I'm looking for. There
Yeah.
isn't a department where I can narrow it down. I'd love to be able to tell you, show me my target audience. They're in a pharmaceutical company and they're in this division and this is their title, and I want everyone who fits that description. I don't have that option. They have all different titles. They have all different departments. They're organized differently. Different people influence that decision. So finding our target audience within each of these large pharmaceutical manufacturers, or even medium or small pharmaceutical manufacturers, really, really difficult. Really, really difficult. Think of a very, very large pharmaceutical company. They might manage 20 brands or 30 brands or 40 brands, and those people don't know each other and they have the same title. Well, if you're managing this brand, I don't care about you, not because I don't care, but you're not our audience.
Right.
And if you're managing this brand, I do care about you, but their LinkedIn profile doesn't say what brand they're working on.
Yep.
So finding who we're trying to reach is really difficult. Hence, back to the content. We need to allow them to find us based on providing them with really good value content.
And I mean, add to that challenge that you're looking at people that are involved in brand, and very often brand leaders don't have budget. So you have to find the people around them that actually want to spend money, because they're great in meetings. They get completely what you do. This is fantastic. I totally understand how we would use this. Cool. Can you buy this? No, I can't buy this. I don't have a team or a budget. I'm a brand leader. Oh, well, that's challenging. So yeah, pulling those people out of the woodwork, letting them identify themselves around the questions that you're answering in the marketplace, drives them right into your hands.
Right.
So, I mean, the flip side of this is that it is about being patient-centric in your space. How despite selling to the business, how do you manage to make sure that your content is patient-centric?
It's a really good question, and we think about this every single day, every hour, every minute, if we can. So we're selling to pharmaceutical manufacturers, but the person benefiting, not necessarily using our services, is a patient. So if everything in the world works correctly the way we want it to, they have access to specialty pharmaceuticals faster when we do our job right. And we always do our job right, of course, right? But so if they work with us, patients will get access to their medications. They're more likely to adhere to their medications if they're working with us. We can't forget about that. If we don't do our job right, there's someone who needs something critical to their lifestyle or their life. Any delay could not have a positive outcome for someone at the end of it. We can just never lose sight of that. So what we're trying to do is make the patient story inextricable from the pharmaceutical manufacturer story. And we don't take it for granted because it seems kind of obvious that that's what they care about. And it is, but we just try not to ever separate that. So when we did our website, we focused on what is the patient journey and how do our services dock into that. Not here are our services and here's where the patient comes in and out. But this is the patient. This is the journey they follow. It's complicated. Here's are the various points where we can help make that journey easier, better, faster, facilitated.
So it's sort of a complicated two-level customer experience on your website, even because you're communicating a client experience, a patient experience that is going to be seen by the business that's going to buy your product and supply it to the patient. So you have to think about everybody in this equation. You can't it's not just here's what I do for you, pharmaceutical company. It's here's
Right.
what I do for your clients, and if you implement this, you're going to have better relationships with your clients. Right.
Well, they're the people trying to get access to their medications or specialty medications will get it faster.
Okay.
That's what they want. That's what we want. That's what everyone wants.
It's not a bad place to be. Faster is
No,
better.
no.
Let's talk about the PSOTD. That is the provocative statement of the day. It's a thing that you believe that maybe everybody doesn't believe. Maybe people won't even agree with you. Maybe I won't agree with you. I kind of hope I don't. What's your provocative statement of the day?
Um, I love flashy, jazzy writing and creative. I believe it's more important to be consistent with our messaging and our imagery um, than it is to be flashy and jazzy.
Okay.
That is hard. That is hard for many marketers to contemplate.
It is. Why do you think that?
Why do I think that it's more important to be consistent than
Yes.
it? Okay, um, because um, because consistency is what emblazons your brand and your reputation and your values into the customer mindset. Flashiness can do it a moment in time, possibly, but when you're a new brand or new-ish brand and you're competing against Fortune 500 companies, you need to make sure that it's solid, it's consistent, that they're not questioning, what you say from one conversation to another. You need to be consistent with your messaging. It needs to carry through every part of their experience with your brand, right from the marketing to the conversation with sales to the conversation with finance to close the deal, to the conversation with customer success to make sure that they are successfully implemented and have a great, post-sale experience. If you're off, it just creates reason to question what you say.
Do you have a top level tip to somebody entering your role at a different company on how to do that?
Yeah. Just use the same visuals, use lots of templates. Unless you're ready to puke when you see it, you haven't used it enough.
I think it's so interesting. I mean, that you say this because I don't disagree with you at all. I think it's actually
Oh no,
critical.
you wanted to disagree with me.
I,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
did, but I'm jumping on this train because I think it's something that many companies don't think about as much as they used to. I
Right.
always use Oracle mid 2000 era as the example. When you would see the red bar at the top of the slide, you knew you were in a meeting with Oracle,
Yeah.
and they just managed that brand imagery really well. Everything went together, everything was aligned. You knew who you were meeting with. You could go even further back than that into the 90s. There was a cartoon character with a red hat. That was the Limp Bizkit album. And you knew wherever that went, where you saw that red hat, you were listening to Limp Bizkit. And now businesses don't think that way. There's a lot of experimentation, and we're always changing imagery. We're always changing look and feel. And it doesn't it doesn't transcend with the business. There should be one
Right.
thing, and it can be hierarchical. And there are things underneath that top level brand that can change and evolve. But at the top level, you're a thing that's recognizable, and
Right.
that's value to you. You're building up value in that brand, both written and visual, that is difficult to replicate elsewhere in the business because that brand builds premium buying guidance. People will buy based on the company they recognize. So if there's two companies and one company's doing it well and one company's doing it poorly, it's likely the company that's doing it well is making more money. But yet we get all creative and we try a lot of things and we play with all kinds of colors and things get lost and you're not that in the market.
Right. So what's your favorite song?
Let's say Hotel California.
Okay. Do you know all the words to Hotel California?
Probably a bunch of them, yeah.
Okay. So what if every other time they played Hotel California on the radio way back when there was a radio, the words changed, right? Hotel California because the words don't change, right? Welcome to the Hotel California.
Yep.
If sometimes it started there and sometimes it didn't, it wouldn't have the same impact. You wouldn't remember it as easily. It would take you much longer to understand the concept of the song. It doesn't change. Sometimes, there's different execution of that song, but the words are the same. And that's why you know the words.
I love that that whole example. Fantastic. Julie, thank you very much for being on the show. This was fantastic.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun talking with you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to WordBirds. WordBirds is hosted by Chris Willis, produced by Charlotte Baxter Reed, and brought to you by Acrolinks. For more information on Acrolinks, visit www.acrolinks.com.